In the spring of 2004, Cindy and Bruce Weber were only a few years away from celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary. But they were still very much in love.
Cindy and I met in a ceramics class at the University of Illinois.
He's my college sweetheart. I was a sophomore, and there was an attraction right away.
Cindy's my better half in the sense that she's very driven and she looks ahead a lot more than I do.
Over the years, Cindy's high energy has come in handy, raising 2 children, working as a kindergarten teacher, and sticking to a daily exercise regimen.
We were a very active family, and I loved to run, usually about 3 miles each and every day, and I loved to garden. I was an extremely healthy person. In fact, I was so healthy that I really rarely saw a doctor.
But then, one afternoon in March of that year, Cindy spots something unusual on her right leg.
At the end of the day, I noticed I had a 3 by 5 inch bruise on my leg. What was odd about that was I couldn't really put any specific thing to what would have caused such a large bruise.
We'd always joked that she bruised very easily, so it wasn't a surprise.
I wasn't too alarmed about that bruise. What was odd about it, though, was it was seeming to take a really long time to fade away. But then again, I really had never thought, how long does it take for a bruise to go away?
It takes a strangely long time, 2 months in fact, for the bruise to fade. And even after it does, Cindy's left with an odd sensation in her leg.
It still had the tenderness one would have with a bruise. I could always feel it, even when I couldn't see it. I did have a few friends who had had some serious illnesses, and I know that they had had some bruising.
Just to play it safe, Cindy makes an appointment with her family doctor.
So there I am explaining to the doctor, pointing to my leg, which looked totally normal. But I kept telling him, well, it still feels like a bruise. He said perhaps an MRI would be a good idea.
Sure enough, the MRI reveals inflammation deep in Cindy's leg tissue. A sign, the doctor says, that the original injury hasn't completely healed.
When he told me it was a deep tissue bruise, I felt a sense of relief.
So it seemed almost to be the end of the story.
The doctor advises Cindy to stop running and rest until the inflammation goes away.
They suggested that I just be patient, that I should stop and give it time to heal. I hated to stop running. It was my stress outlet, and it was something that I just enjoyed immensely.
Reluctantly, Cindy follows the doctor's orders. But 2 weeks later, not only is her leg still sore, but the bruise has returned.
It was very, very red and very blue. It was every bit as bold as the first time I had noticed it way back in March. This was very puzzling to me. So I made a call to the doctor. And the doctor told me to be patient. Maybe just hadn't been enough time.
But as the weeks go by, a bizarre pattern sets in. The bruise mysteriously vanishes and reappears with no apparent warning.
It would come and go. I might not have it in the morning. I might have it at night. I might have it one day, and then not again for 3 or 4 more days, sometimes even a week. Sometimes it would just be very faint, barely visible, and sometimes it would be bolder.
Amazingly, a whole year later, there's still no let-up from the bizarre recurring bruise. But just as Cindy's resigned herself to living with it, she's blindsided by a frightening new symptom.
It was the end of May, and we were winding down the school year. The morning was fine. I didn't feel any different. And even at lunchtime, I didn't feel any different. An hour before the end of the school day, I felt a huge wave of pain come over me. I felt all fevery. Lifting my pencil felt as if I was lifting a 50-pound weight. And every mark that I made on the paper, I felt a wave of pain go through my arm. When I stood up, I realized it wasn't only my arms, but my legs were in extreme pain as well.
Somehow, Cindy manages to get through the rest of the day and drag herself home.
I was out of town on a business trip, and I got a call from Cindy, and she was crying that she was in so much pain.
I knew I just needed to get to bed as quickly as I could. I went upstairs, and it took me quite a while to get up the stairs because I was in such pain. I tried to put my pajamas on, and I realized I could barely lift my legs. It felt as if somebody was hitting me with jackhammers in my knees. I was just miserable.
44-year-old Cindy Weber has just experienced a strange and agonizing sensation in her legs, unlike anything she's ever felt before.
I had pretty much decided if I wasn't better that I was going to the emergency room if I needed to. But when I woke up the next day, amazingly, all of the pains were gone. I felt pretty much like my normal self.
Perplexed, yet thankful to be rid of the pain, Cindy returns to work the next day. But it isn't long before she finds herself grappling with an entirely new problem.
I noticed a little line of red dots. I thought it was pretty unusual. After I discovered these little bumps, I went to my mom's house. But I particularly like to go with my medical issues to her because she's a retired nurse practitioner.
And when Cindy's mother, Charlene, gets a glimpse of the strange dots, she's completely taken aback.
I said, that is a petechial rash, and it has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed immediately.
Petechiae are pinpoint-sized red dots caused by broken blood vessels under the skin's surface.
The only thing that I could think of is that people who have blood disorders get petechiae.
I could hear my mom's voice change its tone, and she doesn't always hide her emotions really well. She wasn't very calm about it. She said, "You need to be seen now."
And I said, "Cindy, please call a physician and do something about it immediately," which she did.
I was expecting that the doctor would know just what it was, but that wasn't what happened. When the doctor saw the rash, she was a little bit alarmed herself. I asked her, "Is this serious?" And she said to me, "We don't know what you have. We don't know if it's serious or not, but we need this to be taken care of right away."
They started talking about what it could be. There were diseases like leukemia or lupus.
The doctor performs a series of blood tests and a skin biopsy. And for the next 3 days, Cindy and her family wait anxiously for the findings.
The test results couldn't come back soon enough. It was getting so frustrating.
But when the report comes back from the lab, it reveals nothing out of the ordinary.
My family had a sense of hopelessness, that they couldn't do anything for me.
To make matters worse, Cindy's leg pains return with a vengeance. But they soon begin to radiate through her entire body. And just like the bruise, the episodes seem to come and go.
She'd get up in the morning and she'd feel great, and then, say, midday, she would start to feel achy again, and then at night, it would get worse.
The pains became more severe, to the point where she was having a difficult time walking upstairs or moving around in her kitchen.
I was getting sicker and sicker by the day. I was hoping so much that it was just going to be some kind of a simple thing.
Determined to find out what's been making her so sick, Cindy visits one specialist after another.
I went to the regular doctor and an ENT, a rheumatologist, a dermatologist, and a neurologist. I kept thinking, well, maybe this will be the one that has the cure. Maybe this will be the one that knows what I have.
But none of the doctors can explain her seemingly unrelated symptoms or keep them from getting worse.
The pain got bad enough that she couldn't comfortably walk. She had to hang on to things in order to move around. Feet were really hypersensitive to anything. She felt like her feet were actually on fire sometimes.
By the middle of the summer, nearly 16 months since the bruise first appeared, Cindy is completely debilitated.
I could barely stand. I had such intense pain. I couldn't sleep. Even having the sheet on my feet was painful.
It was shocking to see how fast she could go from really healthy to really in just an agony.
I was so sick that I wasn't able to care for my family anymore. I couldn't stand cook dinner or do any of the things that moms normally do.
It was a devastating time for the whole family at this point.
I think it was maybe our darkest time. We didn't want to find out the diagnosis at the autopsy.
I saw her deteriorating to become almost immobile. I thought, why? Why her? Why not me?